किया ना तो प्रेशर आएगा
Break.
फिर 24,350 के बाद आएगा.
We are live actually. Yeah. So the market is flat.
Hello
Flat.
guys.
Hello.
Fed rate decision first because that was the first point.
Yeah, but market first.
Okay,
because
markets first.
Markets first.
Okay,
Flat
yes.
markets, right?
2 days Sajeet.
Too नहीं पिछले एक हफ्ते से ऐसे.
Yeah, but no, I'm saying in spite of the concerns yesterday, the anticipation was there will be some direction taking into consideration what happened from a geopolitical perspective. 24,400 was the level that the market is eyeing right now.
Yeah, because you look at the calls, na 24,400 is where the maximum call open interest is. So there is a resistance which is coming in.
But the support is only at 24,350 right now. If that is broken on a decisive way, there will be selling pressure. On the upside, if we are able to sustain above 24,500 for a decisive period, then you will see that direction on the upside.
So
but currently, neither the bears nor the bulls are able to find any.
Yeah, it's a very thin, narrow band which is
Bank Nifty 2,000 point ka range hai approximately.
Yes.
Though with yesterday's range slightly expanded beyond 2,000 points. If you talk about Nifty 100 point का range चल रहा है.
नहीं, Nifty 100 point का है, Bank Nifty as you said
2,000
point का range है. But the bigger point is that the volumes or the turnover has been very thin. You have all the speculators and all the long means there is a buying which is happening in the broader indices, Nifty small cap and Nifty mid cap.
They've clearly outperformed benchmarks last
in the
2 days.
last 2-3 days. Yes, if you look at it, I was just looking at the sectors which were doing well. इसमें since 22nd April when that Pahalgam happened, Nifty IT is up 6.6%. Okay, auto is up 5%, defense is up 3%, and oil and gas 2%. And now put things into perspective, FI numbers for April 16 to April 30. 38,000 odd crores, 23,000 crores going into financials. When financials have been lower, and Nifty PSU bank is down 7%.
Everything is private banks.
Everything is private banks. अच्छा ऐसा नहीं है कि प्राइवेट बैंक से ऊपर है, ऐसे ऊपर नहीं है, वो भी नीचे करेक्ट किया. प्राइवेट बैंक से डाउन.
पहलगाम के बाद आप बोल रहे हो?
पहलगाम की बात कर रहे हैं. पहलगाम के बाद ही कह रहा हूँ मैं. उसके बाद ठीक है. So that's one. Then you have Nifty 100 broader में it's almost flat which is there. Even after the last 2 days of run up, Nifty 500 and Nifty mid cap 100 is just flat since Pahalgam. Simple as that. So a lot of buying of IT companies is happening on the back of domestic institutions buying into IT, while FIs are dumping IT.
April itself, I think $1.8 billion worth of selling has happened by FIs
in IT.
Right? So
and $3 billion of buying in financials, basically, which primarily private-led financials.
So a lot of the money plus the fresh money is going into financials.
And now in the last 2 days, it is going into small and mid cap, and that's because of the kind of growth which earnings.
Because if you talk from March to April onwards, if you see the quantum that FIs held IT, that's come down, I think 9.5 to 10% is that variation.
Yeah.
It's come down to almost 9%.
Yeah.
So there is that deliberate effort from the FIs to stay away from IT for reasons known. They are 100% not sure of the impact in terms of global markets, and that is what is concerning. And the second commentary, if you see in terms of Indian IT companies, is the usage and exposure to AI. These are the two factors which is concerning FIs, taking into consideration what global IT majors are doing.
Interesting.
But banks, what do you think? Means now that I think 60-70% of the banks have come in, if you were to break it down into say a large, mid, and small, and NBFCs, four buckets, how do you see each of the bucket?
Very
broadly?
Interesting. So large have been able to maintain margins. Asset quality is relatively okay, and by asset quality I also mean credit costs and the like, the trends that are playing out. and ROAs are doing reasonably well. So the larger banks, private banks, have definitely been better off. Where the smaller banks are concerned, growth has tapered off, but that's because of asset quality issues. You still have some bit of pain to go where MFI is concerned. Some of even the smaller businesses in terms of loan defaults has happened, and therefore you're seeing pressure there. Unsecured is the other place where pressure is there. So all of that is dragging both growth as well as the P&L. So both of those are forces. You're seeing margin compression happen, and all of those trends are playing out. So it's looking more and more difficult as we close FY25. But as we open FY26, things are looking slightly better because you're hopeful that things will turn around in FY26, and it'll be that year. Where PSU banks is concerned, and only 2-3 major ones have come out actually. You have PNB which came out yesterday, you had Bob which came out day before, and you have
How are the PNB
SBI.
numbers?
Everyone is seeing shrink in terms of margins, and very sharp shrink. Now these banks in any case have margins of only 3%, right? Now when you see a 12-13 basis point shrink over last quarter,
And why is it happening?
is because the repo rate pricing is starting to play out on margins.
So they're not able to pass on.
So till last quarter they are not able to pass on. Now what PNB is saying is that now we'll pass on because your deposit rates will get passed on. But I mean, we all well know, sir, that ये चीज को 6 महीना लगता है, 1 साल लगता है, because that FD repricing is yet to happen. And
और सबके सबने 2-3 साल के लिए already locking करके रखा हुआ है.
Correct. So and therefore the real repricing will take time to play out. And so some of those are headwinds, especially for PSU banks. The real challenge for PSU banks is now the base is high. Can they deliver on this higher base is the question.
The challenge is coming only from a point of view of advances there, right? And the repricing of their how do I say
EBLR and
MCLR and other stuff which is there. Asset quality is not an issue for them. And in the case of small,
no slippages dikhe hai, sir, frankly. So PNB has seen a slippage of 1%. They said agri portfolio slipped this time. Bob saw a slippage in the
Bob
MTNL
number was
account.
very disappointing actually.
Yeah, so MTNL account में slippage देखा तो उधर 1% slippage हो गया
But
Bob का.
Harsh, if you have to put the entire sector into consideration, I would say asset quality has improved to an extent.
Fair point.
On an average
I agree
basis,
with
right?
I agree with
and the FI perspective that we are talking about as well. Interesting is what the way DIs have stayed put in IT, FIs have gone. In banking, you have DIs and FIs who've supported the sector this time around, and I think that is what is favorable. And if you have to link this now as to what will happen from an RBI perspective, RBI, yes, there has been some support, and now it will be better because you have Fed, which has stayed not cut rates. So the pressure on RBI to cut rates further goes away.
But
we are expecting they are still under pressure, Hiral. There is still the consensus view
that is going to be there.
50 basis more, 50 basis points
but
more, right?
अभी वो pressure में नहीं काटेगा.
Correct.
Fed ने नहीं काटा है. They've stayed. They'll say.
Fed तो पिछले बार भी नहीं काटा.
पिछले बार नहीं काटा है, पर सर अपने 6.5 था, अपना base थोड़ा higher था.
So that's
this
one.
This is some pressure I feel in terms of today's.
But the story which is playing out.
I think. So sorry, I'll just complete this point. ये जो so interesting you make this point, and what just struck me is the fact that a lot of the pressure that RBI gets when the Fed is at 4.5 and RBI didn't cut when they were at 6.5 was the dollar, right? And just trying to explain it in layman terms for the benefit of viewers, that if RBI were to cut sharply and the Fed doesn't cut, then you will get pressure on the rupee, right? Because people will pull out money from India, take it back to the US and make 4.5 because the Indian repo is at 6 instead of 6.5, right? So this is what would happen. Now though, you've seen the dollar index fall sharply, Indian forex reserves go up, and therefore with all of those factors playing out, the RBI is under less pressure to not cut. So they have the bandwidth to cut despite the Fed not cutting. So that is what Hiral is trying to allude to.
There is also one more factor which is coming in is that, China is not able to get that metrics right with respect to growth in industrial and manufacturing because of the kind of tariff hit which is coming in, and as a result of which you're seeing some kind of outflows from China, and that's going into emerging markets like
Correct.
India.
Correct.
So while at one point in time, because the differential between the Indian yield and the US yield is narrowing, and money may go from here to there, there is a compensation which is happening with respect to money flows coming back to China, back from China to India and other countries. So that's one thing which is there. But there's a story which is playing out, in autos. Pahalgam, say, I'm just seeing the numbers here, right? MRF is up 10%, Tata Motors is up 10%, and Bosch up 9% since 22nd of April. And
so is that Pahalgam or is that India UK?
Why Pahalgam? Yeah.
No, I'm saying that the market has been nervous since Pahalgam, right?
That's true.
So I'm taking that as a benchmark.
Fair point. So despite the nervousness,
nervousness is up 10%, and that's a story which is playing out because ये जो हम जो बोले Tata Motors move नहीं कर रहा, we were talking about 10 days ago. Tata Motors is not moving. It's M&M which is there, but look at what M&M is up 8.4%. MRF is up 10%, Tata Motors is up, and so the stocks
has been an outstanding story.
Yeah, but the stocks which are not performing in the last 10 days or 15 days is Hero, Exide, Bharat, Bajaj Auto, and Eicher, all having
1 month returns on M&M.
21%.
This is a Nifty 50 counter, sir.
Yeah.
21% 1 month returns. So it just goes on to show that if you're in the right pocket at the right time with the right price, or you're buying at the right value, you'll likely make very good
Tata
returns.
Motors is not
regardless
bad,
of-
19% 1 month return.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and we've been saying
That's
that
what
the
I'm
Tata
saying.
Motors is not moving, but slowly it's moved
But
up
this
actually.
is a key beneficiary of your one UK FTA.
That happened yesterday. We are talking
No,
about
but the previous also, okay, so it started moving in anticipation of the UK FTA. If you think about it,
Yeah.
that the conversations
No.
are going on.
No.
The-
Here,
and
UK
I
FTA
think-
was a
no.
surprise for the street actually.
From the day the meeting for the stocks, the demerger was there.
No,
Hiral.
it's
This
an
is with
anticipated.
regard to the US tariff.
Tariff.
So the day
correct,
US
yes,
tariff
tariffs,
happened.
yeah, yeah.
Just
So,
I know
correct,
that's what you
correct,
meant to say.
no,
So
no,
what
so-
I'm trying to tell you is US tariff के दिन से जब वो लो क्लॉक किया 550
का,
उसके बाद जो रिवर्सल देखा है वो बहुत शार्प था, and then on top of it it's done. So
And now
556,
even
95 हो गया है।
and आज also the US UK tariff that
Correct.
would be on the cards
Correct,
now.
correct.
So that is what is giving it
That is
momentum.
also going to be a fill-up for Tata Motors because JLR has a big market in the US.
US,
And
exactly.
That will be big.
And to
Trump
add
is
to that,
softening his stance on Canada also. He softened a little bit.
It
He's
was a-
erratic.
it's-
He's
it's-
erratic, but
and
he's softened.
MRF, if you think about it, from
Numbers are not bad. Margin expansion of 300 basis
Superb.
points.
Superb.
Superb numbers.
The other aspect is with the OE, and these are the guys who MRF is supplying to. M&M Ultras, EV portfolio, it's MRF. Tata Motors JLR is MRF. So the supply chain improves as well to some extent. So
True.
volume
इसके
perspective,
अलावा
but-
I think what is the tailwind which is coming in the low raw material prices, carbon black and
entire
rubber.
tire pack is up. You
So
see a CEAT,
Apollo,
you see
all of them are
all of
up
them.
actually. In that.
And
sense.
it's CEAT who started that run.
So Apollo is also up nearly 22% in last 1 month. Simple as that. So
We have done a KYC on CI.
yeah. So the auto pack is now gradually. So there is some money going into that, and if people haven't moved into it, then I think Samvardhana has been an outlier in that sense. 27-28% up in last 1 month.
Samvardhana, in fact, gets a tailwind even from Apple,
Apple.
right? So now if Apple is going to move production here, it's Foxconn, Tata, and Apple. And Samvardhana.
And then you have tariff. So Samvardhana. Both UK as well as US.
So
Both
Fed rate
benefit
decision
from both.
expected.
Expected.
As expected line. The point is
100%
that
expected.
now they're talking about a hike only by the end of the year or next year, early next year, right?
So there is no,
Right?
so there's still room where they're saying that next में शायद कुछ हो सकता है. But an interesting commentary that Jeff Dennis made this morning was that Powell thinks he knows what Fed will do, But actually, he does not know what Fed will do. It's Trump who knows what Fed will do.
But Trump doesn't know what he will do.
Yeah.
And therefore,
everything is.
Therefore, even Trump doesn't know what the Fed will do.
That's true. That's true. That's the biggest thing. Today, I think they're talking about US UK trade deal happening later in the night, and I think if that happens, then it's positive for Tata Motors and other some of the companies which is there. So it's anyone who has a supply chain or a link India, UK and US अभी indirectly हो गया है मतलब वो अभी सिर्फ India US बाकी है, simple as that.
Correct.
So
वो भी हो जाएगा. So one is of course UK. The other linkage of that tweet is India also.
Yeah,
Could be India.
Could. It says representative of
large countries. So it could be anyone. It could well be India. And if it is India, then tomorrow you will see.
But I think positive surprise. But I think it's priced in to some extent.
It is, but the contours is not.
Contours is not. But the deal. I mean, you know what's going to happen. It's absolute sentiment. It's absolute sentiment.
Irrespective of what is happening geopolitically or in our geography, deals like a US FTA or a UK FTA, is a totally different game changer, and I think it disconnects the markets and the economy from what is happening, politically or geopolitically, which is there in that sense. And while other countries may not be able to do it, it's a parallel track which has been run, and that's the best thing to happen actually.
And I think that's what is again playing a role even for your auto companies right now.
True, and that's what is support also.
MRF exports to US and Europe, UK, right? If you think about clients from a Volkswagen to a Mercedes to a JLR, all of these are beneficiaries. So MRF is a pure play right now, according to me right now, more than earnings, is definitely reacting to the FTA. India, UK, US. Because your brands which will go, and that export positioning is going to be very strong.
True.
From the luxury market perspective.
We were discussing this yesterday, right? Means how China is a big market for JLR. Now it becomes equally big market for India as well, going forward, kind of volume that we are talking about, especially with respect to quotas, which is there. And though I think there's a EV quota which is at 6,200.
Who's?
The India UK FTA,
yeah.
And that's where Tata is going to benefit in that sense. So it's like a Mini Cooper you can buy a new Mini Cooper for 25 to 30 like that.
So I don't know if anyone saw.
We can Uber it.
And if you have an MRF, the number of MRF shares you have to just sell, that's the discussion we have. But Tata Motors is interesting in terms of the number of units, is what you're saying is out of the 6,000 units, just for viewers who've not probably gone through our website, but out of 6,000 units, it's 1,000 units which get imported from UK to India. So that's where the duty component comes down to 40% or low. The other aspect is the other 5,000 units on an approximation basis where they are all assembled in India. So there the duty I think comes down to around 16% if I'm not mistaken, yes. And the third component is the spare parts. That's the knockdown, yeah. And the spare parts, which is around 5 to 10% of Tata Motors' revenues, that spare part, it becomes tax-free. So that's the kind of advantage. Yeah, absolutely duty-free. So that's the advantage that Tata Motors is sitting on the back of JLR for India, UK. So now think about it in terms of UK, US and India, US. If things fall in place and if India has a better negotiating power, taking the UK FTA into consideration, it's going to be a major tailwind for your export-oriented sectors.
And that's going to happen, right? In that sense, means if you look at what we have today in place, and I've been talking about this, like Korea, Japan, and ASEAN region, we have 85% of the industrial products which are, under the various free trade agreement and are 0 for 0 or very less tariff which is there. India can offer the same thing to UK. India offer the same thing to UK, and the same thing can be offered to what do you call, to the US. I think in the US, I think they're talking about some quota system for pharmaceuticals, which is there, so to protect the domestic industry, which we are talking about. But otherwise, I think it's the same playbook which has been played out, with India, US, and India, UK, which is there. So there's another one, IT stocks seeing the sharpest.
We kind of spoke about it already.
Yeah, I mean,
but I think we need to touch base on consumption, Sajeet.
Yeah.
Because, the narrative consumption changed from the budget. We started talking about that 1 lakh crore mark in the hands of the people. And the view on the street was, this is going to be a game changer with regards to where consumption goes. If you can just pull up the data in terms of how the FMCG sector has done since.
So Nifty consumption is up 5.7%.
Since, and this is since?
This is last 1 month.
No, but if you have to see from the budget. 1st February, say, it's a pretty mixed view that's coming in because, number one, the extra money, that 1 lakh crore that was supposed to come in the hands of the people only would come in from the 30th of April. Not before that. That's the time when it hit people's bank accounts, right? So from Feb, March, April, from 3 months you were not going to see that change.
Data says that Nifty FMCG is out down nearly 1%.
Exactly.
And Nifty consumption is up 2%.
The next aspect to it is, if you hear the commentary with regards to your absolute FMCG players, let's keep aside your coffee brands, your beverage companies, etc. Your mom and pop, the basic necessity kind of
Staples.
FMCG companies, your staples, or you take into consideration your Maricos or all of them, everyone has been of the opinion that one, small packs is what is selling. Two, there is improvement in terms of rural demand to an extent, which is still small. Urban, they are not seeing signs of improvement yet. So, if you have to put all of this together and the kind of pressure that FMCG consumption as a pack has seen in the last 2 trading sessions, there is still that nervousness amongst consumers, taking the war situation into consideration. People are still thinking, should we hold on to cash or should we save at this point in time? Because there is that uncertainty looming, right? So, to my read, and valuations have come off. You can't say valuations are cheap. They've come off to an extent for consumption. So, if you have to put that narrative from my perspective into consideration is, in terms of consumption, your valuations are not cheap. There is that uncertainty which is still looming from a geopolitical standpoint. And that's why your spends will still be slightly lower as compared to the revival that you were expecting. And thirdly, you have much better opportunities to then invest in versus consumption then. So I think this is going to become a sector which will probably get onto the avoid list right now. Though there are fund managers who are saying that probably this is the time to bet on consumption.
I'm on that side, the other side, and I've been in my picks of the sector. I said consumption is one sector which will revive. Maybe not now, maybe a quarter down the line it will come in. Why I say that is that, as you said, it's a smaller packs which is going, but most of the companies have now converting your premium products into smaller SKUs and those are getting sold. So the aspiration level as well as the price point and value point is something which they're trying to match.
Under pressure.
True. I get that part of it, but if you look at the commentary which an HUL is talking about, or a Dabur is talking about, or for that matter, Marico or a Godrej are talking about, they're looking at maintaining the market share at this point in time. Some of them say that we look at fair market share, which basically means that in any category, if our market share is 10% of, for example, 10 or 5, 6, whatever percentage, we need to maintain that at this point in time because this is a difficult time. Because the moment you bring down the market share, it's very difficult to get it back when the momentum goes back, right? In the sense, because then at that point in time, you have multiple levers coming into your balance sheet, whether it's a raw material lever or demand lever or whatever it is, and then the price point is something which is going to be supportive to you. So you have to maintain. So HUL is talking about maintaining a market share, and that's coming from a big boy. We saying that I'm seeing my premium products getting sold at a price point which is lower, but even actually struggling to find what is the optimum price for that thing. You know, in
So
that, so the value proposition which they talk about, right? कि इस price पे क्या वो चलता है? नहीं, they are titrating that to the
so I think within consumption, the actual fast moving goods which are selling those smaller packs are the ones which you can probably bet on, and not something which is a luxury.
True. Luxury could be वो discretionary में चला जाता है ना.
Probably you can put it on that front. No, but
Discretionary
I'm
में चला
saying
जाता है.
even for that matter, say okay, let's take your jewelers. They still fall into the consumption basket, right? You will still not look at them. So I'm saying, okay, your companies which are selling biscuits. Let's talk like in layman. Your companies which are selling biscuits. Your companies which are selling atta. Your companies which are selling all your masala. These are the ones which is a bare necessity. So companies who are into all of these businesses, which is your daily need, is what probably will see that revival after one quarter, what you're saying. But if you're going to look at something कि चलो मैं बिस्किट के बगैर इसके बिना कुकीज वाला खाऊं, तुम्हारा कुकी वाला बिजनेस नहीं चलने वाला है. अभी तुम्हारा बिस्किट ही चलेगा.
नहीं, but
so that's
you know, it's the Parle G effect actually, you know.
Yeah,
simple that, because मेरे को Parle G खाना है, अब वो उस प्राइस पॉइंट में खाऊंगा मैं, सिंपल एज दैट. पहले 10 रुपए में इतना मिलता था, अभी 10 रुपए में इतना मिलता है, और आगे जाके 10 रुपए में और कम मिलेगा. द रॉ मटेरियल विल डिसाइड द साइज ऑफ द पैक कि वो 3 बिस्किट होंगे या 5 होंगे या 10 होंगे, सिंपल एज दैट. बट that which is the mass and the other stuff is now being tried out in the premium segment by many of the you know, FMCG companies. You know, I was listening to some of the Gen Z in our newsroom, and they were talking about neo brands, and जो मैंने कभी सुना नहीं है, मतलब and they were talking about cosmetics and other stuff. like ये कौन सा नया ब्रांड है? सर ये भी है, ये नया है. मतलब what about those Mama, Lakme and all? नहीं, ये सब नहीं, ये. And the pricing point is as good as the premium product, simple as that. But they look at small things. So that's something which is there. Of course, we have many questions which is coming in. There is PK which is asking you, Hersh, RBI's latest credit growth data, the wholesale sector showed more than 20% growth versus 10% overall. Is it possible that goods sold by companies are stuck in trade channels due to demand slowdown? तो सर डबल लिंकेज किया है.
Well, possible, but that's not what we're hearing. At least this is whatever I've heard in terms of con calls. That's not what we're hearing.
There's no pipeline issue, which is the inventory stuck up in pipelines.
No, not that we're hearing it. So, in a sense, there could be inventory stuck. It could be temporary and therefore not much of a concern. But it's not substantially different from what's been seen in past. At least that's not what is coming out of any commentary. You could well be right, and maybe we'll ask whenever we speak to a management next. We're going to speak to Canara Bank, so maybe we'll put that question, but unlikely that we're seeing much of that, at least at this point.
Is it a good time to buy Bajaj Housing
We had
now?
spoken about this couple of weeks
we don't talk
ago
about buy, but is it a good time to look at the numbers? I mean, how the numbers been?
So okay, I'll break it up. The book value per share is roughly 27.5 rupees. Current market price, I'll just quickly check, but it's likely trading at 5 times. Now 25% growth, 5 times price to book, and 2.3% ROA. So it's 120. So yes, roughly 4.5 times maybe, and 2.3 times ROA. But it will certainly start looking interesting if it were to fall a little bit compared to peers, because when you're looking at the peer pack within housing financiers, they trade at maybe 3.5 times price to book. They do nearly a 4% ROA, and therefore what you would want to see from a Bajaj Finance is how quickly can the ROA re-rate towards 4%, if it can. Growth is very good, 26%. It's just about in line with the way peers are doing. Maybe slight positive bias to that number, but what you want to see is that whether the ROA can creep up. Because at 2.3% the ROA looks a little depressed in comparison to how the peers are doing, and the valuations obviously trade at a premium because it's a Bajaj Group holding company, and therefore that's broadly how the metrics stack up. There are likely better options if you read through the commentary that's coming through, because there's no asset quality issue per se across all players. But what you'd want to look for is what you're paying versus what you're getting in terms of ROA versus the price to book value. So maybe look at those 2-3 factors and determine how you'd want to invest.
There's one question on SG FinServe. It's an NBFC small 2,700 crores.
Yes.
But I was looking at that company, and its book value is 130, current price 410. Little expensive for
little expensive,
3 times, right?
So, but there was quite a bit of
ROCE of 12% and ROE of 11.4%.
Yeah, so there's quite a bit of interest, frankly, sir, in this one, because a couple of people asked me for a view with regard to this, and even within the newsroom. It's an interesting play. If I recall right, it does receivables lending. So basically, if you need working capital for and you
it's just like a bill discounting company.
Correct. It's like a bill discounting company. Money blocked somewhere, then they will. So it's a
working capital refinance kind of thing.
It refinances things very quickly. So वो फट करके उसका move होता है.
And it's tech enabled and tech enabled.
Tech enabled है. I mean, from what and this is maybe I shouldn't speak about it because it's something I heard via and I've not verified it. So
yeah, but it looks
not too many people tracking this counter.
Yeah.
And certainly not looking cheap either at 3 times price to book, you said, right?
Devang, you have answered that question on
Gensol shares a good choice to gift.
Yeah,
I think
to your enemy. We can gift it
yes.
to Pakistan.
Let's say.
But
just joking.
Just joking. The idea is, I think any companies which have corporate governance issues, regulatory issues, it's advised not to venture out to even forget investing. There are concerns which do crop up, so you don't know what side of the battle it'll head towards. But the key is, yes, you might see some moves that will come in these companies, and they're usually operator-driven companies at that point in time, I would say. But
question.
I don't want to get into that only.
Question देखो क्या है?
I am planning
Madam, I am planning
to
a gift to my mother-in-law
this month. But it's a waste of your money, right?
It depends.
Even if it's a gift.
It depends.
Yeah.
My answer is it depends.
गाली खाएंगे वो अलग कि गिफ्ट आया तो कैसे आया?
नहीं उसके second part क्या है? As it's my wedding anniversary.
So Abhi, is that a gift to the mother-in-law for the gift you've got? Couple of years ago or not is the question. But
Coco is a very good question.
But in all honesty, Gensol is not a company because it has corporate governance issues. So, we will not give buy or sell advice, but please look at it very carefully when you look at companies with all of these concerns.
Yeah, and we've discussed it extensively on this platform.
Yes.
They keep giving guidance, they don't meet that guidance. We discussed it even before the Gensol issues cropped up. Sir is still laughing.
I was laughing at the question.
And it's all about the fun, since we expect good monsoon. No, okay. So Suraj Jain is asking about what's happening in AC. Okay, so in terms of the AC sector, one bit of information what I would want to say is the results that are coming out, which have been pretty okay, are for the 4th quarter, where if you have to compare on a year-on-year basis, it's absolutely like to like. The slowdown that everyone is talking about right now is the slowdown which was not anticipated in the month of April itself, right? Yeah. So that's what is the slowdown. Now,
and
whether
one reason for that slowdown is the high base which is there as well.
Correct, of the previous year. And these guys have been sitting on huge amount of inventory as well. So these are the two aspects that we need to consider in terms of ACs. And please look at the first quarter of FY26 to understand where the sector is headed, because there are going to be volume concerns in this, at least in the month of April. How May, June pans out is what we need to wait and see, because if there is an uptick that comes in. But you have rainfall which has already started coming in many parts of the country.
My view is that, in your India market close, you should do a comparison between Symphony, Voltas and Blue Star.
So we are doing a comparison between Voltas and Blue Star.
Not on the earnings.
But Symphony does not fit the bill because it's a very differentiated
consumer
product.
Electronics.
Yeah, but it's a very different it's a very different product. It's air coolers. It's not air conditioners.
No, but air coolers will also be in same kind of demand.
No. I mean, you can't compare a bike to a cycle because both have two wheels, right?
No, okay. Well, I'm talking from a point of view of demand point of view.
So that becomes a BMW's cycle. So let's not.
So I'm talking from a point of view
premium bicycle.
If you have to look at the demand scenario of it, right? In the sense, pricing point is something which we look at across consumer electronics or consumer durables, which is there. But you don't look at from a point of view of how Q4 numbers has been. Look at from a point of view of the commentaries each of them has said about Q1 and going forward.
Yes.
So that gives you a good idea of the demand and the challenges they are facing. And each of them has a different pricing point and the what do you call it, the level of pricing and level of premiumness is there in each of them. So you get a good rounded approach of from Symphony जो पंखा भी बेचता है और कूलर भी बेचता है to a Blue Star जो high end ACs भी and Voltas जो करता है, right, in that sense.
So yeah, I mean that's the way you should be looking at this space. So in fact, please you should, whoever is diligently investing, please read the con call transcripts. Which are absolutely available on the company's website, etc.
Read your con call transcripts before investing.
No, really, and that gives you a lot of idea in terms of what is anticipated, what are the kind of questions that analysts are alluding to in terms of understanding the company, and that will give you a lot of details. But another question that's coming in is Swiggy, from Abhinav Mandal, given the lock-in for pre-IPO investors of Swiggy, which expires on the 12th of May, what can we expect? More downside or a good opportunity? We did a detailed discussion on this with Somit.
Yeah.
And the clear point is, I think I'm just reading that 83% of the shareholding is getting unlocked on the 13th of May.
$3 billion worth.
Correct. Now, what's interesting is IPO price 390, listing close day price 456, all-time high 670. So if you have to take the current market price into consideration, it's almost a 12 to 14% down tick from the IPO price, and all-time high say 50% cut hai. So there are multiple players who will be able to sell, so there could be pressure that could come in terms of Swiggy by that time as well. Because, I mean, out of the 14 FI shareholders...
the bigger problem is that many of the private equity shareholders who have been holding on for more than 6 months now, many of them will try to exit at that time. But those companies still on a high return.
But see, so that data tells you that of the 14 FI shareholders, 5 of them did not sell shares in the IPO and they hold 14.5%.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is one. Now 55% of the holding, there the current market price is much higher than the acquisition cost. For 9.6% of the holding, the current market price is 23 to 30 times the acquisition cost. For around 4%, it's at least 3 times the acquisition cost. And for 41% of the holding, it's 2 times the acquisition cost.
So they're holding on a huge
profit, exactly.
Right?
And that's the reason why selling could come in. That's what I'm alluding to with this data.
16% is down from the IPO price, so it's still there. But
it's rallied 10% in the recent
and the consensus target price, if you have to go to see around 15 to 20 analysts who track it, is in that range of around 440 to 450 rupees. So you're not seeing a major upside in terms of the growth that could come in from the current market price as well. So to be very honest, yes, please anticipate a lot of selling that would come in. Now after that bottom that it hits, does it become an opportunity to buy?
Yeah.
Probably if you're sitting on that cash, if the valuations are looking attractive, if the business is looking attractive, that's when you'll have to see, because currently Zomato is under pressure. Zomato is losing out market share versus a Swiggy versus a Zepto. That is what the street is talking about. And number two, if you see in terms of the cash burn, that is also pretty high right now for a Zomato.
True, and that's one of the reasons why Zomato is also a little under pressure. And I think Abhinav was asking why Zomato is down today. There is a pressure which is there on Zomato, and next 2-3 quarters you have a higher cash burn. Though some analysts say that okay, the peak burn has happened. In the last 2 quarters, they have added roughly around 500 odd stores. And today 40% of the total stores, which is 1300, is still underutilized, and you're talking about another 700 getting added in the next 2 quarters, which is going to happen. So we're going to have a lot of cash burn which is coming in. Things will change a little bit once they get all the shareholder approval to become an Indian owned Indian company, and then they will be able to manage inventory at their level. But inventory cost bhi badega, kyunki aaj ke date mein they're talking of 5% as an inventory cost. For 22,000 net order value, they're talking of 5,000 crores of working capital requirement, and if things are going to double, then you're talking about 2,000 crores of working capital requirement, in that sense. So,
but I think Sajeet, we've answered majority questions. I think only questions from Ravi Joshi are pending, but Ravi, I think we
thank
should
you for the compliment.
Yes, thank you for the compliment, but please allow us tomorrow's day to actually answer all your questions with regards to
I think we have answered.
UPL.
It's all about fun question on UK FTA. Alcohol he's asking about.
Yes, your domestic players will be under pressure. Companies which are importing like a United Spirits will not be under pressure because you'll have cheap alcohol that comes into the country. So again, your domestic brands could see some bit of volume erosion. So keep note of that, and that's the reason why you're seeing this kind of a reaction that's coming in terms of alcohol companies.
Ek Sia Keshu ka hai, and it's an interesting question. He's saying, is it better to focus on housing finance companies or gold loan companies, given they are asset backed? Both are asset backed. The only point is that the gold is going to be a little volatile, because if US China deal happens, then gold will see some kind of correction which is going to come.
Yeah, so that too, and the fact that gold loan companies aren't doing pure play gold these days. They're venturing into other businesses as well. So you have that risk as well. And even within gold loan, you'll have to monitor Manappuram specifically. Manappuram subsidiary, Ashirwad Microfinance, came out with numbers as part of their debt filing exchange that they've done. This came out yesterday, by the way. Significant decline in terms of asset quality or credit cost has gone up substantially on a sequential basis. Likely this time Manappuram's numbers will take a huge hit. You will see zero or negative profitability this time from Q4 on Manappuram's numbers. So you that kind of indicates somewhere that once you start doing lending outside of this secured business, you start to take risks.
So Ashirwad was into SME and unsecured. MFI. So entire MFI basket has been hit, right? And it will take at least 2 or 3 quarters. At least 2 bankers have said 2 to 3 quarters lagega. So that pain continues for them.
Yes, and it will come out in the numbers, of course, and as
and that pushes the. I think they were looking for an IPO for Ashirwad.
They've already pushed that. They've already pushed. They've already pushed. So all of that gets hurt, and I know there are new backers of the company that Manappuram has got, but I mean you get the rift that gold loan pure play, fantastic product, but coupled with all of these things, starts to look questionable. And in that sense, housing finance is a cleaner setup in terms of HFCs.
So there are a couple of more questions which are there on companies. We'll try to answer them tomorrow.
Yes.
And try Barbecue Nations.
But let's remember all of
and
these names tomorrow.
UPL.
UPL in fact is in focus in today's session only because of the China anti-dumping duty. I forget the name of the product, but UPL does have exposure to that, and I think probably, I mean, the stock was up around 1%. It didn't see any reaction, but there could be some kind of an impact on the back of the China anti-dumping duty on a UPL. In fact, probably I will get someone to record a social link as well on the same, so that you can log on to our Instagram or YouTube Shorts or
Watch I can do
YouTube,
that. Yeah, watch I
exactly,
can do that. Yeah.
and you will get all the details on all the other companies
Yeah.
also which get impacted on the back of this China anti-dumping duty.
Yeah, we
UPL is up 48% in the last 12 months.
So we're leaving the market
Amazing.
flat. It doesn't mean nothing is happening. Is not the thing what we are trying to say. It's saying we are saying that IT is up. The broader market, mid cap and small cap, there is a buying which is happening there. The broader indices are flat, and that's primarily reflective of the geopolitical mood which is there, and that's why a lot of positioning.
In the broader markets.
Yeah, I mean the momentum is not there. Let's put it this way. You know, there is buying, there is selling, and for 15 days FIs have been
Yeah,
buying.
and there's no direction, but
Yeah, it's not that it's directionless because the momentum is not there, and momentum comes through trading volumes that is there, and trading volumes are
very
absent,
thin.
are thin.
And please watch out for the wicks as well, because in spite of it going beyond that 19 mark, there is
Yeah.
some bit of cool off that's happening
Yeah,
today
it's,
as well,
down
right?
2.5%.
0.5%. So there,
Yeah.
you know, keep an eye on wicks. If it once it heads below that 15 mark, you will see some interesting moves and volumes come back to the markets as well. So watch out for that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yes,
So,
yeah.
out of time, please hit like, please share if you like what we're doing. Yeah, for today, goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you. Okay, guys.
बहुत सारा हो गया.
हाँ लंबा हो गया इसलिए रैप बस हो गया 45 मिनट्स हो गया.
Property share price. Second SME REIT, small REIT.
Hiral is experiencing